techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we've initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. Over the last 11 years, Osmosis has been a platform for Mindtree minds to showcase their technical capabilities, learn, share, and innovate. It has been the stage to showcase the skills and capabilities at Mindtree and to tell the world that they are unstoppable as individuals and as an organization. With Osmosis 2015, we are taking things to the next level by not just engaging Mindtree minds, but by connecting the organization to the entire ecosystem that we are part of. The topic of today's session is time for big integration after big data. We expect the webinar to last for about an hour with 45 minutes of presentation and remainder time for question and answer round. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them using your questions tab in your control panel. Our guest speakers today is Nikhil Jain. He is a technical architect at Mindtree. Nikhil is a part of EAI BPM service line and works with customers as a technical architect. He comes around with 9 years of experience in IT architecture, SOA, ESB, BPM, and solution implementation. He has extensive experience in providing expert solutions using BizTalk server, infrastructure and migration planning for BizTalk server, architecting and consulting and transformational engagements. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker today. Over to you, Nikhil.
Thank you. Hi everyone. It's time for big integration. I'm Nikhil Jain and I'll talk about the next big change that is going to happen in the world of integration. And what does the future look like for integration? Recently, Microsoft has announced in an integration summit in December 2014 that it's going to change the way we look at integration. Microsoft has unveiled the new Azure platform, which will involve the use of small services or microservices to be combined like building blocks to form a platform for cloud applications. BizTalk server is a old product or is a mature product which has been doing most of what on-premise integration server product needs to do. And integration has evolved, though there are few challenges with BizTalk server's architecture, which means that it will have limits in its ability to deliver the things that companies will require in future. It is similar to how data and data warehousing has changed phenomenally over recent years. 5 years ago, hardly anyone was talking about big data, and it was all about SQL Server, data warehouse, OLAP cubes, SQL reports. The reality was when the cloud changed the IT possibilities, then big data became a reality, and companies had new requirements which allowed you to develop newer, simpler solutions, but also at a massive scale. The tools that we have are still relevant, but we also need new tools to deal with new problems. And from there comes things like stream analytics and Hadoop, etc. Perhaps in integration world, we also need a new name like big integration to emphasize this shift. We may not have a new name, but the reality is the same. We need to build simpler solutions in some cases, but also solutions which can deliver to cloud scale. BizTalk server has a place, but we need to complement it with new tools to deal with new problems. So what I'm going to talk about is Azure Microservices, also known as BizTalk Microservices. What features of BizTalk would become a microservice, where, when, and how to get started with microservices, how will the future look, and my thoughts about it. Before we start discussing to the system involving building and deploying a new version of server-side application on all your around.
Nikhil, we would request you to shift to the wired network. We are facing a network issue. We've lost your voice here. Dear all, we would request you to bear with us. We're trying to fix this.
Scaling of entire. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, Nikhil, we can hear you now.
Okay. So should I continue? It's not audible. Uh, okay. 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 Deepika?
Yes, Nikhil, we all can hear you.
Okay. That's good. So I was saying that all the logic for hand names can run the test, but you can also horizontally scale a monolith application by running into many instances behind a load balancer. Monolith applications can be successful, but increasingly people are feeling frustrations with them, especially as more applications are being deployed to the cloud. Change cycles are tied together. A change made to a small part of application requires the entire monolith to be rebuilt and deployed. Over time, it is often hard to keep a good modular structure, making it harder to keep changes that only affect one module within that module. That require a greater resource. The frustrations have led to the microservices architecture style, building applications as suites of services, as well as the fact that services are independently deployable and scalable. in different programming languages. They can also be managed by different teams. So Martin Fowler to developing a single application, a suite of small services, each running into its own process and communicating with lightweight mechanisms, often HTTP. These services are built around business capabilities and in and use different data storage technologies. What does it mean? Generally, in a monolithic application,
Dear all, we are trying to fix the audio. Please bear with us. Few more minutes, a couple of minutes.
to realize a loosely coupled system of services. Microservices can also be, this is an important premise for continuous delivery. The deployment stays highly efficient while development services are small. It is easy to replace them by newer, improve or better or change the technology. We can just use a newer technology and replace the microservice with a better implementation. It is easier to establish independent teams in a microservices architecture. So what's not good about microservices? If you have developed a lot of microservices which are talking to each, still in large implementations it becomes really complex to maintain this kind of architecture, as you may divide into hundreds of microservices. Monitoring and alarming also becomes complex. Another problem is comprehensibility of pure microservice architecture for complex systems. Because the system is loosely coupled, consisting of independent applications, it is not easy for developers to see overall structure of the system. So what do? So we start vertical decomposition of the way we design microservices. Every app would become a vertically decomposed, so based on your two concepts fits perfectly together, microservices and the vertical decomposition, and introduces another dimension to scale the system. And they help to give microservices a structure as well. Microservices, on the other hand, helps us to cut down verticals into smaller pieces so they don't turn into large monolithic applications. A black box, but inside there are some REST interfaces, but internal structure is up to the development team responsibility for the vertical. Whether or not team is choosing microservices to realize a vertical is irrelevant from the perspective of that are different. REST that may differ. Okay, so we know what is microservices, but how does it fit into BizTalk or Azure? To know this, we'll just recap how traditionally AI works and then see how it fits in. Traditionally, we have enterprise apps installed on the local data centers. All the data that an enterprise requires stays within the boundary of local data center. To integrate these local data centers and the CRM, we would use specialized integration software like BizTalk server. Most of the design would be tightly coupled with few touch points. That's what is the traditional app integration. How did the cloud change the dynamics of the enterprise application integration? More and more enterprise applications are moving to the clouds, which means integrating these applications also needs more cloud-specific solution. Microsoft has launched MABs, or simply called as BizTalk service, which can be used for more specific cloud integration sometime back. BizTalk service comes as a package with set of adapters, bridges, hybrid connectivity, and hybrid integration. I will not go too much in detail in this webinar about the BizTalk service, but to understand what change microservices brings to existing BizTalk service is that BizTalk service still runs on a dedicated VMs, and it comes as a package rather than pay for what you use style of costing. Today it requires loose coupling between the apps in the cloud. Still a lot of integration is carried out in BizTalk server or BizTalk service or both, which is again centralizing the entire business logic, transformations, orchestrations, etc. But we believe integration is no longer a vertical solution but core to the app platform, which means that each of the application running would do their piece of data exchange or expose endpoints to carry out the operations. So we are decentralizing the entire business logic, transformations, orchestrations from BizTalk server or service. Let's see how traditional B2B integration happens. Normally, exchange between partners would happen either point-to-point or use specialized software like WAN, which limits us to fixed B2B protocols like AS2 in BizTalk and fixed schemas like EDI, which generally leads to lengthy partner onboarding and enabling firewalls to communicate messages. Also, a big disadvantage is too hard to do resource planning to adjust for seasonal demands. And so how did the cloud change the dynamics of the B2B integration? Nowadays we would need cloud-friendly protocols or adapters which help us to transfer messages securely. Also more generic formats like XML or JSON to exchange messages. We also need to leverage partners across the globe. We need a quick and simple onboarding of the partner. We also need to leverage the benefits of clouds like on helps us, and we are going to another room. Within 2 minutes, we'll continue the presentation from another room. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption, all of you. We really apologize for the disruption of network. In another few minutes, our speaker will get connected and you will be able to hear the audio just fine.
Your access followed by the pound or hash sign. To enable audio controls, please enter your audio PIN followed by the pound or hash sign. If you do not have a PIN, just press pound or hash.
Hello?
We all can hear you. We would request you to, touch upon the previous slides where the audio wasn't very clear. If you could quickly cover those slides as well. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So we finished discussing about microservices, what microservices means, how we would normally decompose the services into smaller services, and what is the bright side of microservices. We discussed all of them, like scalability. It's easier to develop as these are small pieces of development, and we can choose our own language to develop, or we can choose the language which we prefer to develop it with. And these microservices normally are exposed as REST or HTTP, using HTTP APIs as well. So there are a few downsides of microservices architecture, which is like if we have a large complex integration, we would divide into a lot of microservices, each of them having a small unit or piece of logic, but it would be very difficult to monitor and alarm such a complex system. Also, another problem would be the comprehensibility of pure microservice architecture for a complex system. So there are a few downsides of microservices. So we decompose this into verticals, and then based on the applications, we start dividing the microservices. So we also discussed about the traditional app integration, where BizTalk sits in between the ERP and the CRM. Normally, apps are installed on the local, enterprise apps would be installed on the local data center. BizTalk is a specialized software for doing the enterprise application integration.
and normally there would be few touch points with tight coupling. How did the cloud change the way we integrate? More and more applications on the cloud are moving to the cloud, which means integrating these applications would need more cloud-specific solutions. We already have the BizTalk service, which is already an integration solution from Microsoft, which has this hybrid connectivity and hybrid integration. But still today it requires loose coupling of apps in the cloud, and still integration is carried out more or less in a centralized manner rather than distributed. But we believe integration is no longer a vertical solution but core to the application platform, which means that each of the applications running would do their piece of data exchange and expose endpoints to carry out these operations. So we are basically decentralizing the entire business logic transformation or orchestration from BizTalk server and BizTalk service. Let's see how B2B integration happens. Normally the exchange between the partners would happen either point-to-point or using specialized software like WAN, which limits us to fixed B2B protocols like ES2 in BizTalk and fixed schemas like EDI. It generally leads to lengthy partner onboarding and enabling firewalls to communicate messages. Also, a bigger advantage is that it's hard to do resource planning to adjust for seasonal demands. How did the cloud change the dynamics of B2B integration? We currently need new cloud-friendly protocols or adapters which can help us to transfer message securely. Also, more generic formats like XML, JSON to exchange the messages rather than EDI. We also need to leverage partners across the globe. We also need quick and simple onboarding of the partners. We also need to leverage the benefits of clouds like on-demand scalability for better utilization, which helps us to meet these seasonal demands. So we'll just discuss how is today's Azure app platform and how Microsoft has evolved this app platform to cope up with all these needs which we need in EAI and B2B integration. So today's Azure app platform has discrete sets of services. There is the Azure websites, allows you to develop websites using ASP, PHP, Node.js, Python, and can be deployed using Git, FTP, or TFS. You have mobile services to build engaging iOS, Android, and Windows applications. Media services, PaaS offering that can be used for encoding, content protecting, streaming the media, or using the media services. BizTalk services, your current cloud-based solution for your app integration. API management, which you can use and publish an API in minutes. So these are actually standalone services. They are not all together. These are like you have these services separated out with distinct hosting environment, extensibility point, and management experiences. So all are discrete and distinct. In a real world or in an enterprise, you would normally stitch them together to build a solution for an enterprise. So what Microsoft has done is they have refactored the application platform. Change is the name of the game, and Microsoft, what they have done is basically in the current app platform you would have to order each service separately, but now all is packed in one. So this is one app platform from Microsoft, basically changing everything from like when you go to a restaurant, you just order one by one, or you get everything in a buffet. So this is something like a buffet. You choose what you want within that. You use it or you don't use it. Is up to you. So let me explain the refactored app platform with the integration at the core. At the bottom, we have a common application container and a cross-platform extensibility. Above that, integrated API management to protect business critical solutions with authentication and key management, and built-in logging for analytics. Above that is microservices runtime, which is the point of discussion, and development ecosystem that will support cross-platform applications. So it means you can develop in any language or any platform with deep diagnostics functionality. This is where BizTalk microservices becomes a core to the app platform. Above that is the cloud orchestration engine, which will leverage various microservices. Web-based processor design tools will be created to enable developers to build business processes, and orchestration engine will support both on-demand and long-running processes. And finally, at the top, we have the web and mobile services. So you can build both type of applications. Also, a new platform would be available in public and private cloud. So if you have a private cloud in your enterprise, you can start using the microservices to integrate as well with the Azure Pack. So let's go in detail of each layer, starting from the bottom. App containers and hosting. There are like more than 400K application hosted, 300K customers, and nearly 2 billion transactions daily in current application platform. So it's a proven cloud scale and a solid foundation for your apps. As existing customers starts to migrate from the existing app platform to a new platform, which will be released in some time, it gives us a big opportunity to use BizTalk microservices. So potentially there could be like 300K new customers once these customers migrate to a new platform. Supports hybrid connectivity as well, and available on-premise with Azure Pack. Next is like built-in API management, which would provide us API documentation and interactive control on the Azure portal. You can set parameters like throttle, rate limit, and quota our APIs. We can monitor the health of the APIs and quickly identify errors. Bring modern formats like JSON and REST to existing APIs. If any of your APIs does not support this, it would be add on to, these would be features add on to that. Consolidate multiple backends into a single endpoint. Gain analytics insights and how the APIs are being used. Above that is the microservices runtime and development. Cross-platform support, so they can be run on either Windows or Linux. Auto update on the software is provided, logging of details, and rich ecosystem with partner monetization opportunities. Out-of-the-box adapters about that, or connectors that would be available as microservices. All the standard protocols like HTTP, SFTP, file, enterprise applications like SAP, Siebel, Microsoft Dynamics, most popular consumers and the enterprise SaaS like Twitter, Facebook, Salesforce would be available through Marketplace. These would be called as connectors and not adapters, so they're just changing from adapter being called as connector. So the most interesting slides, what would be the stock features that would be available as microservices. So generally validating, batching, debatching, or format conversion or extraction would be done in a pipeline in the stock server, but now these would be separate microservices. So if you want to use one of them, plug it out, you can use it and build a solution. So all of these will become separate microservices. You can just use a transform or mapping into your existing EIA or existing application, and you can just use a transform as a microservices. Mediation patterns for adapters for connectors will also become another separate microservices. Business rules is also a separate microservices. Trading partner management and AS2, X2, refactored would also be provided as microservice. So each of these features and adapters is a separate microservice which you can plug and play to your requirement and not have the complete BizTalk server or BizTalk service setup, but still get to do all of it. So which is very exciting. On top of it is the workflow engine, which is comparable to orchestration in BizTalk server. So the workflow engine is JSON-based workflow definition, not the Xlang. Orchestration and API application, so it supports the API application. Supports long-running processes and control flows. So in case you need long-running processes. Enables developers and business users to define and track business processes. So just as what orchestration was providing on-premise, the workflow engine is providing in the cloud. Finally, at the top of the tree is the complete web plus mobile experiences, rich SaaS offering with cross-platform for .NET, Java, Node.js, or PHP. So you can choose the best language for your problem statement. Features are as built-in auto-scale and load balance, high availability, and auto-caching, which is all part of one single platform. So we know what is the new Azure platform and where do we get started or how do we get started. Currently the product is not yet released, but once released it would be added to the marketplace as microservices gallery with data services along with other data services, virtual machines, web applications, Azure Active Directory applications and application services. New microservices can be built using other languages or any language that are already supported in Azure like Java, Node.js, PHP, Python, Ruby. So a lot of flexibility there. So what's the future for BizTalk? Ever since Microsoft has been developing new tools of integration, there has been a basic question: is the BizTalk server going to be dead, or is already dead, or we don't want to use BizTalk anymore? This question has almost haunted BizTalk developers for a long BizTalk community for a long period of time. And when Microsoft had introduced SSIS, people were thinking, okay, this might replace BizTalk. Or when Microsoft had introduced workflow, again there was a question whether this would replace BizTalk orchestration or the cloud support from the for BizTalk service also was a question that it would replace BizTalk server. So don't worry, BizTalk server will continue to be a powerful integration tool. It is the fat boy sitting inside the on-premise, so very difficult to move in. With full release promised every alternate year, so that's good news. Every alternate year we would get a full release of BizTalk server and an update release in between. So this year we would have a release for BizTalk server 2015 in this year, and BizTalk server 2015 R2 next year. So will Microsoft support? Yes, Microsoft will support the migration from BizTalk server or BizTalk service to the new app platform, which is the microservices. What happens to BizTalk service, which looks like competing technology on the cloud for BizTalk microservice? Microsoft will continue to support Azure BizTalk service under the SLA. This means that the Microsoft Azure BizTalk service will fundamentally change to support this architecture. So there will be few changes on the maps to support the microservice architecture. Azure microservices or BizTalk microservices or just microservices will be soon released in the first quarter of this year. This brings a big change in integration as it is no longer a vertical solution, but it is core to the application platform as microservices sits inside the platform in Azure. So what would be the practical applications or benefits of Azure microservices if you just think? So I'll be able to, for example, I'll be able to download BizTalk microservices template for specific integration problems. It can be deployed to microservices platform. You can think of every BizTalk capability will evolve as a microservice. Transformation, business rules, validation, authentication, adapters, everything will become a microservice. Partners and third parties, so like more or less third parties will come up with a lot of microservices catered for specific needs. Example, if you need like connectors to hundreds or thousands of SaaS-based systems, the third parties will normally develop these connectivities or some unique mapping scenarios that you want to do in web. For example, EDI mapping or HL7 mapping. So all this would end up as a microservices and be provided in Azure. I will also be able to compose microservices into overall solution using the workflow engine so that I tie up the pieces what I need together. BizTalk microservice will also run in their own scalable container similar to Azure websites, and that the communication engine seems to be followed by lightweight HTTP approach. Microservices can be independently versioned and it will provide a better side-by-side versioning. Microservices will also talk to each other through managed API gateway that ensures trust and security and manageability. The platform can take advantage of some of the current Azure capabilities like auto scaling and load balancing as well. So that's also an advantage. The workflow you create can be templatized and reused. So you do it once and then use the same template for the matching scenarios and improve the productivity. New set of tools will evolve. Example like they can be a web-based BizTalk mapper or a designer, workflow designer, etc. So all this would be a new tool that will evolve. So finally, the parity between the cloud and the on-premise will eventually become a reality in the integration world. So you will not see much differences between what BizTalk server provides and BizTalk service plus microservices would provide on the cloud. Finally, my thoughts on it. BizTalk server would continue to exist. There's no doubt about it. Where organizations have already made a lot of investments and also where organizations need more complex logic and heavy computations in the middleware, where they can't force the application to do this, or they still don't have the private cloud inside their enterprise to do this using the microservices. So BizTalk server would still do most of this. So is the case with the BizTalk service, which is more specific to business integration on the cloud. So that will still remain. As microservices is not actually a competing technology to this, but it is more of completing technology. So it's not competing anyway with this, but it's more of completing the overall integration platform from Microsoft. Microservices will apply service-oriented architecture, thinking inside application boundaries and serve to break down those boundaries. Time and again, this question will be asked that should EAI be hosting business logic inside BizTalk, or should this be hosted along with the applications, where you can keep the business rules, business logic as per the changing needs of business. So there might be a change in way of the way we design the solutions today in integration from after what we get the solutions in future. How will the future of integration look like? We have seen the integration architecture to move from a spaghetti model where applications directly communicate to each other to a hub and spoke model where the centralized server communicates to all the applications, to a bus where services communicate to each other, to a federated bus once the cloud is there. So to a federated bus where there is a hybrid connectivity between the bus on the cloud and on the premise. So with the advent of microservices, how the future would look like is like basically the business logic or the business rules would be decentralized for simple integration on private and public clouds. BizTalk server or BizTalk service may not be used for doing such things, and would actually maybe for a simpler integration platform, or for example a small enterprise would still have like 2 applications to communicate to each other, then in that case the smaller enterprise would not prefer to go for BizTalk service or BizTalk server, but use microservices for the integration, but with more standardized microservice pattern. So the components that we build in theory will be much simpler and lighter weight. So some of these simpler integration patterns, such as an RPC process to connect to a SaaS application to support querying a data, will be simpler to implement and also perform better, as they won't have message box to work with. If we need to solve more complex solutions, then we can compose more microservices and combine with the Azure Service Bus to include pub/sub architecture, durable messaging. If we have a problem that the services offering doesn't address to or is not solved with the current microservices, then we always have a BizTalk server which we always have. Also, the project and teams can be set up based on the applications rather than one single team to integrate them also. With each application team, there would be a person who will be developing the microservices for that particular application. Bottom line is to keep each microservice or each application or enterprise application integration or B2B integration very simple, scalable, and manageable. So references, I would recommend this to you. I highly recommend this if you have liked my webcast. A lot of good articles and details about the microservices that are already been there on the internet. Questions. So before you ask me questions, there are a few questions that Microsoft has still not answered, like what is the exact date of release for these microservices, or the cost to run them, or what would be the cost to run them, how to debug these microservices, or more in detail about how to do a deployment, automated deployments and stuff like that. So for all this, we have to wait for the product to release. Anything else, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thanks for the insightful presentation. I would request the audience to start sharing their questions now.
Okay, so we have a question. Does microservices replace maps in the cloud? So does microservice replace BizTalk service in the cloud? A lot of people think microservice is a name of the product, but it's not a product. The product is actually the Azure App Platform. It is an architectural pattern that creates the foundation for building BizTalk on top of it. There is no product called microservices that will replace BizTalk services. BizTalk services had certain functionality. It had B2B, AI, and there was big demand for orchestrations and rule engine. And what Microsoft is doing is adding the functionality. So they are basically filling the gaps what was there with the BizTalk service. It does not mean that BizTalk service is going to be dead. Microsoft IT is actually one of the biggest customers of BizTalk services. So they are basically filling the gap in the cloud where BizTalk services was not able to perform. Okay, there's one more question. I was really confused at the beginning of the session as how microservices fit in with where we are with BizTalk server and with Maps 1.0, and where does that brings us move forward. How do the pipelines and bridges maps to where we are going? So basically, the flow in BizTalk service would be a receive port, a pipeline, then it would go to a message box, then the subscriber would subscribe it, whether it is a workflow or a downstream system. So that is the BizTalk server that we know for some time, like more than 10 years now. Then there was a pattern on the cloud that I am receiving something, transforming and sending it somewhere. And that was actually the BizTalk service that they called as a bridge. It consists of receiving endpoint, a sequence of activities, and then routing it. So the difference between the BizTalk server or service with microservices is that we are exposing pieces of that workflow to the external pieces to access. So each of the functionality within BizTalk server or BizTalk service is being converted into a microservice and you can use what you want to out of the microservices and pay for what you use. Okay, and I think that's all the questions. I don't see any new questions now coming up.
Okay, thank you, Nikhil. Thank you for this wonderful session. I would really thankful to our guest speaker, Nikhil Jain, for conducting this webinar. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this webinar will be available on techgig.com very soon. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.